Hello there, it's Tom and Magnolia here, and this is Gunnerkrigg Court, Chapter 76, Down That Road.
Hi there.
So this chapter is one that pulls in some elements from way back near the beginning of the comic, and it contains a lot of stuff that I was really eager to get to, this chapter and the chapter following.
Was it hard to put yourself in the mindset of that older stuff from the comic?
I'm not sure I would say it was difficult because it is stuff that I had been working to for so long, and there are elements that are sort of independent to the way that I work on the comic now, if that makes sense. Like, I guess the way I see it is it's stuff that's pretty much baked into the entire story of Gunnerkrigg, so the stuff that I was eventually coming back to was stuff that I had always planned along,
Sure.
I'm not sure if I'm making that clear, but...
No, I get it.
But we'll see when we get to it. But anyway, we begin with the two Annies heading over to meet up with Egglemore because they have an arrangement to try and find the lake water that is stuck somewhere inside the overgrowth from Luke's attack earlier.
This is pretty risque for Gunnerkrigg.
Well, you mean this page or the whole scene?
The whole scene, really.
Well, it was just visiting.
I remember reading some comments saying that maybe elves just don't know how to wear clothes right, and it's not implying anything beyond that. And I was like, sure, okay.
Yeah. Well, let's just go with that. Well, I guess Egglemore is also bad at wearing clothes because he's misplaced his shirt. But I guess the Annies are kind of surprised to see Idra here too, which I thought was kind of a funny scene.
So you're pretty much deliberately trying to give them, the Annies, an unreadable expression here, right?
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. And as to the whole scene being risque, I thought it was, kind of obvious enough, but also close enough to the line that it would still fly. And yeah, I think it made for a pretty funny scene.
It's fine. I like it too.
And it was just a little piece of character development between Idra and Egglemore that, that was just cooking in the background, just more sort of character development that sort of happens off screen when the narration is focused away from the background characters.
I noticed you started drawing Idra looking a little bit older here too. Because she's closer to Egglemore's age, isn't she?
Yeah, I tried to make her look a bit older. She's a bit closer to Egglemore. A little bit younger, perhaps, but definitely a grown woman. And sometimes, I guess, with the way that I draw the elves, it's a bit difficult to show their age just with their facial features,
Sure.
But either way, they head off to one of the giant trees where they know the lake water is trapped behind some ironwood, and Idra's helped recruit some of the inhabitants from the forest to come and, I guess, bend the wood out of the way.
I don't know if I like pastels on her.
Well, she's probably not very good at picking her clothing, She's, in my mind, she's extremely enamored with the novelty of human clothing, compared to the sort of more baggy, looser fitting outfits that the people from the forest tend to wear. So she just wears anything, even whether it's appropriate or not.
Sure.
But so they get to work and pretty quickly find the lake water that is trapped in here. And it gets snatched away, straight away, by these two chumps, the shadow men that we've seen before.
Is this the first time we've seen them since Spring Hill? No, they've come back since then, right?
Well, I don't think so, actually. I might be wrong, but it's been a while since we've seen either of these two, Shell and Atta, and they've decided to barge in and take over the operation, I guess.
I remember some people thinking that this was another case of people being unnecessarily harsh on Annie's inability to deal with Luke. Do you think you meant for them to come across that way?
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, from their point of view, all the stuff that's happening here could be said to be a direct result of Annie messing around with those creatures in the forest,
But they just don't understand.
They just don't get it, yeah. So that just leads to Annie's further bad mood. And so the Annies go off to see Kat.
They storm off to see her.
They storm off, yeah. But Kat seems to be acting a bit shady. We've seen that she is up to stuff with the robots and the golems that she's reactivated, but the Annies haven't found out yet. And one of these recently activated golems does
make an inconvenient appearance.
Yeah, that's right. Which leads the two Annies to basically discover what Kat's been up to and start to inquire as to her strange behavior, the way that she's been acting strangely pretty much ever since the new contract chapter, when she found that the two Annies are not supposed to be even in this, dimension or timeline or whatever you might want to call it.
This is an interesting chapter for Kat to me because Kat seems like such an earnest character, and usually she is, but here in this chapter we really see how evasive she can be and deceitful people, perhaps even with herself. And sometimes I think that people who seem really earnest can kind of get away with that because you just assume that they'll be honest with you no matter what. And it's kind of interesting for her.
That is one of the big differences in the personalities between Annie and Kat that I'm pretty sure we talked about it before, but Annie is somebody who, I guess when she's feeling down, she pretty much makes it obvious to everyone around her, you know. Mm-hmm. She's kind of a brat in that sense, that if she's feeling down, she'll make it everyone else's problem. But Kat, who outwardly seems very happy and takes things in stride and stuff, when she's feeling down, she'll hide it a lot, and she'll keep that internal until it gets to the point where someone who is close to her, like Annie, will actually notice it and then have to confront her and actually draw it out of her. And like in this case, it actually causes Kat to snap a little bit. Not snap, I suppose, but lose her cool, I suppose. And finally let the Annies and us, the reader, know what's been going on.
Although I think, to be fair, probably the way Annie does stuff is a little bit more healthy than the way the Kat does, because Kat does end up making it everyone else's problem by pretending it's not a problem.
I guess so, yeah you could say that. Either way, the two of them might handle things differently, or I guess the three of them in this case. But eventually, if you have problems, they will come to light eventually, and you have to work through them. And this is where Kat has gotten to the point where she probably can't work through it too much on her own, and now she's letting the Annies in on.
Well, I wanted to comment on something she said earlier, which is that she said that this thing with the two Annies is something that she can't handle. Mm. I do remember readers saying, well, why this she can't handle over anything else? But really, a lot of the things she's seen are things that are very separate from a human experience, but seeing a person doubled like that, just imagine how uncanny it would be, and probably more than just seeing a big monster that you could write off as just a big animal or something, or another being or something like that. I don't know. To me, it makes sense that this would be something that she couldn't reconcile with her own worldview.
That's pretty much what the theme of the chapter and the title of the chapter is about. The stuff that Kat has experienced up till now in the court, she seems to very easily deal with it because she's kind of surrounded with that stuff, as I say, with big monsters that are big creatures, or there are events that you could describe as magic that she's come to terms with the fact that there is an explanation that she just hasn't reached yet. But when it comes to the stuff that has happened with Annie, she has tried her hardest to come to basically an explanation, and she's gone down that path to try and figure it out. And she's hitting a wall, really, and she's gotten to the point where she just can't suspend her disbelief anymore.
I really like Kat breaking down here, too, because it's kind of rare to see her do that, even more so than with Annie, who seems like the more stoic of them, but we've definitely seen her have that kind of emotional release a few times. But Kat, I just felt significant to me.
And it does lead to her letting the Annies know what she's been up to, and leads them to a little thing she's been tinkering on, which is one of these TikToks that we haven't seen for a very long time.
You hadn't drawn these in a while either, had you?
No, that's right. I had to go back and look at reference from back at the beginning of the comic and some of the original sketches and designs I did of them.
This was a pretty cool page. I was pretty excited to get to this part. Do you feel like this reveal happened the way you always imagined it would?
Well, the actual circumstances of, the two Annies being here and them being in this specific room, I didn't picture it exactly like this, but I knew right from the very beginning when I designed the birds that Kat made them, and it was something that she somehow has sent back in time. And even at this point where the bird is constructed and they're looking at it and they still haven't figured out, the next steps, that was always something that I had in mind. And that is something that I was always leading towards and dropping very, very subtle hints. I tried not to drop too many hints because the readers are very quick to pick up on certain things and put two and two together and come to it. But I think the sort of long-running mystery about the TikToks was at the back of people's minds at this point, and they were sort of one of those mysteries that were sort of on the back burner, and pretty happy with how it turned out that it was suddenly brought to the fore, and now it's this thing was around, and now we've figured out where it's come from, and the hints that I've dropped as to their origins, they kind of make sense, sort of Kat's obsession with birds, and her being very technically minded, and
then it looks a lot like Allie too with the hair.
Exactly, yeah, it has the same hairstyle that Allie did, I guess, when he was a bird. But yeah, as far as I'm aware, not pretty sure people didn't call it.
I remember it being a fan theory, but I don't think people were sure or it was not something that people seemed to really believe. So
yeah,
even if it was a fan theory, I'm sure it was very shocking and surprising when this page finally came out and confirmed everything.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, I was happy with how it came out. I'd say, looking back, the biggest clue that I dropped was when the robot's described as being a creature made by a divine being, you know, and they're always referring to Kat as the angel and all that. And it turns out that even Arthur knows that it was something that Kat was pretty much destined to make, you know. It was sort of a lore that has passed between the robots and persisted right up until the point where Kat actually made it.
I like that too, because it helps explain how Kat assumes certain things about the TikTok, like about that she knows that she made it, and that even the ones from before she made them too.
Yeah, and this sort of illustrates a little bit of almost the faith that the robots have in Kat, and that they're constructing around Kat and like her legend, I guess, that's currently in progress. And we'll touch a little bit on that in the bonus page too.
How aware of this is Kat at this point?
Oh, you mean the robot's feelings about her?
Yeah.
I'd say right now, like for Kat, it's like it's a quirk that the robots have and how they talk and how they sort of idolize her. She's aware of it, but she's probably not aware of the extent of it. And obviously she's not really aware of the stuff that robots been doing in the past that, you know, us as the reader, we're sort of aware of.
So her finding out about all that stuff is yet to come, basically.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. I mean, there's still a lot left in the air about the robots and their idolizing of Kat. But right now, the thing that's at the front of her mind, you know, is this sort of paradox that she seems to have constructed her way into. And the realization that the reason why the interpreter guy said that the two Annies shouldn't be here is because they should have died, or I guess she should have died, by falling off the bridge in chapter 7. And the conundrum that Annie dying is what led Kat to making the bird, and making the bird is what saved Annie. So Annie could tell her about the bird, and in which case Kat would make the bird again, and, you know, it's sort of enter into this time loop that she seems to have found herself in. Like for the Annies, they just consider it another cool thing that Kat has done, you know, like, because Kat's always doing this cool stuff for her. But it's really, I guess, grinded Kat's gears, you know. She's really having trouble with it, with the fact that she's sort of stuck in this, and it's gotten to the point where she is getting kind of distraught, you know, and this leads us to the impression that Kat has got so much on her mind and on her shoulders that she's really having a hard time.
Yeah, and I like the way that you've described this and the reason why it's bothering Kat so much, that she feels trapped in this loop she's created. And I know people like to nitpick time travel stories and stuff, but it seems like that kind of nitpick is what is bothering Kat so much. Like, do I just have to keep doing this essentially over and over and over and over again?
Well, exactly, yeah. And that is what Kat is having a hard time with. And also, I've never looked at this as a time travel story, you know, if that makes sense. And I guess we'll talk more about it in the next chapter, but it's more a story that has an element of time in it, you know, and the manipulation of it. But I never wanted it to be like a cheap sort of device that is thrown in to I guess, correct a mistake, you know, or close loop plot holes. This is definitely something that I wanted to set up a long time ago and then now show, well, I guess, the closing of this loop, you know, and sort of how it works.
Well, again, we can talk about this more in the next chapter, but there's always been a big theme of Gunnerkrigg of things appearing in the world before they were made. And so I guess I see this as another example of that.
Yeah, and the conclusion to this storyline, which in the next chapter we'll see, it is something that could never have taken place without these two, Annie and Kat, I should say, without the two of them meeting. And it's supposed to be another example of the mixing of science fiction and fantasy, I guess, which is really the core of the entire story. And so the Annies really do see how much this is upsetting Kat. And while they may not know the solution, they can think of somebody who might be able to point them in the right direction.
I love that this is the resolution to this. It's just a really sweet
thing. The resolution is that they're having a hard time, so they go and talk to her mom.
Yeah, and I think that's great. But it's great to see that, you know, Kat really doesn't have to be alone with this, and she does have support around her, and she just needs to reach out to that. Yeah,
and we'll see why the Annies thought of Anya in the next chapter. But so for now, it's kind of left at this cliffhanger, and we're brought to the bonus page. Like I mentioned earlier, is another example of how the robots are constructing this lore and legend of faith around Kat. And I just wanted it to seem like these ostensibly innocent beings are just very much in awe of what Kat does and what she's doing for them.
I just remember that you really, really struggled with this page and you were worried about it, but I think it's one of the better bonus pages. I think it's a really good one.
Yeah, I guess so. I didn't want it to seem like I was I don't know, like belittling or dismissing the sort of mindset of somebody who puts faith in things, you know what I mean? Or like may try to find, I don't know, symbolism or like meaning in small events and stuff like that. But I did want to illustrate that sort of mentality in these creatures here.
Sure.
And besides, I just really like drawing this particular like female robot. I think she's like I don't know. I just really like drawing this particular golem.
Yeah, she's pretty cool.
And so that is that. Come back again for the next part of this arc, chapter 77, The Thousand Eyes.
Bye.